Hello and welcome back to Mastering English Podcast, the place where we break down English for you. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm Sam. Good to see everyone. It is absolutely wonderful to be here today. We are really going to be diving into one of the most foundational documents in all of modern language learning.
Foundational is a big word.
It is. I mean, we are getting into the DNA of how language acquisition is structured today.
I am so ready for this. I really am, because I have a genuine problem, and I have a feeling a lot of our listeners are in the same boat.
I'm sure they are.
I feel stuck.
Yeah.
I feel like I've hit a plateau.
The intermediate plateau.
Yeah.
It's famous for a reason.
Right. I know the grammar. I can understand most of what I read or watch.
Mm-hmm.
But when I try to speak fluently, my brain it locks up.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm permanently stuck between B1 and B2, and I just feel so overwhelmed by all the resources out there. I don't know what to focus on.
That is the quintessential intermediate struggle. It really is.
Yeah.
And it's why so many learners, they just stop right there.
Yeah.
They reach that B1 level, the threshold, and they think, okay, I should be fluent now. But then they realize that true fluency, it requires a completely different set of skills.
And those are the skills we're going to unpack today, I hope.
They are. When you feel stuck, it's usually because you lack a precise, universally agreed upon map. A map that tells you why your brain is locking up and what specific road to take next.
The ultimate blueprint. So today we are unpacking the Common European Framework of Reference, the CEFR.
That's the one.
It sounds so intensely bureaucratic, but you're telling me this document is actually the secret to decoding what I need to do to get from stuck to fluent.
That's exactly what I'm telling you. We're going to go far beyond just the letters A, B, and C today.
Good.
We're going to break down the specific components of your competence, which is what you know, and then see how that relates to your performance, which is what you actually say when you're under pressure.
Okay, I love that distinction. And it's as a quick teaser for everyone sticking with us for this deep dive.
Oh, this is a good one.
We are going to unpack a really surprising linguistic theory that completely changes how you view your own mistakes. Did you know there are special terms for when you make a systematic, patterned error versus just a simple, random slip or a mistake?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to find out why that system you build in your head is called interlanguage.
That concept is an absolute game changer. It really is. Because it helps you, the learner, stop blaming yourself for errors that are actually just part of a temporary functional system that your brain built to cope.
So it's a feature, not a bug.
In a way, yes. It's a stepping stone.
So intriguing. But before we dive into all of that deep analysis, we have a very quick but mandatory request for you, our listener.
Yes, please do.
If you like this kind of detailed breakdown and you want to support our show, please take a second to subscribe to Mastering English Podcast and like this episode right now.
It genuinely helps us continue to bring you more of this in-depth content, so thank you so much for the support.
It really does. Thank you.
Now, are you ready to begin this journey?
I am so ready. Let's do it.
All right.
Okay, let's unpack this CEFR concept. It's referenced everywhere. I see it on websites and textbooks. But what is it really? Is it a curriculum? Is it some kind of test? Who actually created this thing?
That is the crucial first question. The Common European Framework of Reference, or CEFR, is fundamentally a reference guide.
A guide, not a rule book.
Exactly. It's not a curriculum or a test itself, but it's a universal standard that curricula and tests can be measured against.
Okay, so it's the measuring stick.
It's the measuring stick. And it was developed by the Council of Europe, but here's where the collaborative part is so key. It was built through a massive international cooperative effort.
What kind of cooperation are we talking about? Like, was it just a committee meeting once a year or something?
Oh, far from it. This process has been actively pursued since 1971.
Wow, since the 70s.
Since 1971. We're talking about more than 5 decades of sustained work. It involved collaboration across so many different institutions and countries. Key intellectual contributions came from places like the Swiss National Science Research Council, the Eurocenters Foundation, also in Switzerland, and even the U.S. National Foreign Languages Center. It was a rigorous, research-based global collaboration.
That's actually astonishing to me. It's not just one government, imposing a standard from the top down.
No.
It's hundreds of academics and teachers from all over the world actually agreeing on what the milestones of language learning should look like.
Exactly. And the core aim, the whole point of it, was to promote cooperation among educational institutions. And most critically, for you, the learner, it was to provide a sound basis for the mutual recognition of language qualifications.
Ah, okay, so that's the practical part. If I get a B2 certificate in Tokyo, a university in Berlin knows exactly what I can do with my English.
Precisely.
It removes all the guesswork, all the ambiguity.
It standardizes the measurement. Now, the approach the CEFR takes is what's really revolutionary. It is distinctly action-oriented.
Action-oriented. Okay, that sounds a little bit like corporate jargon. What does it actually mean in practice?
It means the entire model centers on you, the learner, as a social agent.
A social agent?
Someone who uses strategies, which are linked to their competences, to accomplish real-world tasks in specific contexts. It asks the question, what can you do with the language?
Not just what grammar rules do you know.
Exactly. Can you successfully order a complex meal at a restaurant? Can you write a coherent report for your boss? Can you follow the plot of a movie? That's the focus, the action.
I love that. I love that shift to functionality. It makes the goal feel so much more tangible. So let's look at the structure that actually defines those functions, the famous 6 reference levels.
Right. These 6 levels provide the main outline framework. They are designed to ensure adequate coverage of the entire learning space, creating these really clearly defined goalposts for you on your journey.
Let's run through them for everyone listening.
So we categorize them first. A is the basic user.
Right.
B is the independent user.
That's me.
And C is the proficient user.
The dream. Okay, and what are the specific steps inside those categories?
So A1 is breakthrough or introductory. You're just starting out. You can communicate in a very, very limited way.
Okay.
A2 is wastage, which means you can manage simple, routine tasks.
And then we get to B1, the infamous B1. That's the threshold, the place where so many of us feel stuck.
B1 is the first level of true independence. It's a huge milestone. Then B2 is vantage, where you really start gaining fluency and complexity.
Vantage point, I like that.
C1 is effective operational proficiency. This means you can handle complex, detailed communication almost effortlessly. And finally, of course, C2 is mastery.
The names themselves are so evocative. Breakthrough, wastage, threshold, they genuinely sound like checkpoints on a long road trip.
They're designed to map the learning experience psychologically, not just linguistically. And another key thing the CEFR emphasizes is the idea of specifying differentiated profiles for particular learners.
Differentiated profiles. Okay, I'm an intermediate learner, but I know for a fact my reading is better than my speaking. Does the framework actually acknowledge that kind of unevenness?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
In fact, that is the entire point of differentiated profiles.
Oh, really?
Yes. You might be a solid B2 in silent reading, what we call reception, because you've read a ton of books in English.
Right.
But you might only be at a B1 level in spontaneous spoken interaction, which is production and interaction.
Okay, so it's not trying to just give me one single grade for everything.
Not at all. The framework isn't designed to give you one single global proficiency score. It's meant to map your specific strengths and weaknesses across all 4 language activities. It validates the fact that having an uneven profile is perfectly normal. It's expected.
That's actually a huge relief to hear.
Oh.
Okay, so let's drill down into that core function you mentioned earlier, the CEFR as a calibrating instrument. That sounds intimidatingly technical.
It is a bit technical, but it's absolutely essential. So let's use an analogy. Think of the CEFR as the standardized GPS coordinate system for language learning.
Okay, a GPS. I can picture that.
Before the CEFR, every language school in every country had its own map. The street names were different, the landmarks were different places. It was chaos.
Right. My level 5 in one school means nothing in another school.
Precisely. The CEFR, however, ensures that every institution uses the same, stable, accepted standards of measurement. It's a common GPS grid for the whole world.
So it's standardizing the ruler itself, not just what's being measured. And that standardization, I mean, that must allow for huge educational mobility, right?
Exactly. And if we look at a comparison, this approach is fundamentally different from older models of language learning.
How so?
Well, traditional models were often developed for, long-dead classical languages like Latin or ancient Greek.
Ah.
Their focus was prescriptive. They dictated formal grammar rules, verb conjugations.
The focus was on preserving the rules of the language, not really on using it to, say, negotiate a train ticket in a busy station.
Correct. The CEFR, by contrast, is descriptive and, as we said, action-oriented. It focuses on your functional abilities, not just your formal knowledge.
So let's make this real. Give me a real-world scenario.
Okay. Let's imagine a software engineer, let's call her Maria, who needs to move from France to Germany for a new job. Maria needs a reliable English qualification for her visa and for her employment.
Okay. And if she takes a test that is not CEFR calibrated, her new employer might have no idea what her advanced certificate actually means.
It's been weeks trying to assess if her level 7 is actually good enough for the job. But because Maria earns a B2 certificate that is anchored to the CEFR,
The German employer knows immediately what she can do.
immediately, they know Maria can interact with a high degree of fluency and spontaneity. She can present clear, detailed descriptions on a wide range of subjects, and she can understand complex technical texts in her field.
Wow. So the framework facilitates trust and, I guess, rapid administrative recognition,
Hmm.
all based on these objectively defined performance levels.
And that trust is built on the very word we need to explore right now, calibration.
Okay. So if the CEFR is a map and every map needs consistency, what is the real difference between calibration and just, setting a standard? Why use the fancier word?
That distinction is absolutely key. Setting a standard is a declaration. An authority just says, this is the rule now.
Okay.
Calibration, however, is the objective, evidence-based process of establishing the position of something like a descriptive statement or a test item on a consistent scale. It means measuring it against a known, validated reference point.
So it's scientific, it involves research.
It involves rigorous methods, like something called rash modeling, to ensure it's statistically sound. So
Yeah.
setting the standard is the what, and calibration is the scientific how. It's the ongoing process to ensure accuracy against that standard.
And that's what gives the CEFR its international authority.
That's it. Let's make this word really concrete with 5 distinct examples.
Let's do it.
A formal example. Calibrating descriptors ensures reliable test scoring by verifying that a B1 test in one country measures the same proficiency as a B1 test in another, guaranteeing transnational consistency.
Crucial for fairness. I get that.
A casual example.
Hmm?
I need to calibrate my coffee grinder settings again because the beans are new and the grind size isn't matching the specific espresso machine pressure.
The world absolutely stops if the coffee isn't properly calibrated. I feel that one.
A funny, weird example. He keeps subtly calibrating his joke delivery based on the audience's silence, trying to find the perfect level of humor that actually works.
A painful process.
Historical example. During the Age of Exploration, astronomers had to meticulously calibrate their telescopes using known star positions to avoid catastrophic navigational errors at sea.
Wow, so it's a life or death thing in that context.
It can be. And finally, a philosophical example. We must constantly calibrate our moral compass based on new experiences and information. Otherwise, our sense of right and wrong might become outdated.
That one is surprisingly deep. Okay, I think I have a handle on it. Let's practice using it in a realistic language scenario, like a meeting I might actually be in.
Great. Let's imagine a conversation between a teacher and a curriculum consultant. They're discussing test design.
Okay, I'll be the teacher. I'm worried about my students' results.
And I'll be the consultant, focused on making sure the framework is being used correctly.
Okay, as teacher. So I just gave the final reading exam, but the results were strange. Everyone scored really high. Even the students I know usually struggle. Is the test just too easy?
As consultant, it might be. But before we change the test, we need to check the process. We need to calibrate the reading comprehension descriptors we're using to score it.
As teacher, what do you mean?
As consultant. Well, it looks like we might have accidentally used A2 criteria to score B1 level questions. If the test isn't properly calibrated to the B1 level, then the scores we're getting are pretty much meaningless.
As teacher.
I see. So we need to re-examine our criteria and adjust the test items so they objectively align with the validated B1 performance level. We're basically fixing our measuring tool.
Precisely. You are establishing objective alignment based on external validated evidence. That's calibration.
Got it.
Now, for collocations and nuances, we frequently see phrases like objectively calibrated to a common scale, instrument calibration, and sensor calibration.
Well, very technical.
They are. And the key nuance is that calibration always implies adjustment and measurement against established objective evidence. It's not just a matter of subjective opinion.
Okay, so we know the CEFR is built on collaboration and this scientific process of calibration. But what makes it a good framework? What are the principles that guarantee it's actually effective?
That's a great question. The designers knew that a framework built by so many different organizations from so many countries needed some internal guardrails.
Right, to keep everyone on track. Exactly. So they identified 2 core principles for the whole system. It must be transparent and it must be coherent. If you lose either of those, the whole system just falls apart.
Okay. Transparent and coherent. Let's start with coherence. If I'm a student, I might think, coherence? That sounds like a lot of work for the designers. Why should I care if the whole system is perfectly linked?
That's a fair challenge. Coherence in this context means that the description of language use has to be free from internal contradictions. But more importantly for you, it requires a harmonious relationship among all the components of the educational system.
What do you mean by all the components?
I mean everything. The needs of the student, the objectives of the course, the content you study, the materials you use, the teaching methods, and finally, the assessment and evaluation. Everything has to line up.
So if my curriculum says the objective is B2 speaking fluency, but the only materials I'm given are like outdated written grammar drills,
Then that curriculum lacks coherence.
the objective and the material don't match up at all.
Spot on. That misalignment means the learning outcome is compromised. Coherence ensures that every piece of the system is working together toward the same goal.
Okay, I see why that's so important now. Let's dive deeper into this word. I understand the internal logic aspect, but what's the real difference between coherence and just being consistent?
Great question. They're related, but different. Coherence is about the quality of being logically and systematically connected, so that it forms a unified and understandable whole. It speaks to the unity of ideas or the structural elements.
Okay, the big picture structure.
Right. Consistency, on the other hand, usually refers more to the uniformity of an action or an outcome over time. So a student might be consistent and always using the wrong verb tense.
But their story could still lack coherence if the ideas are just jumping around randomly with no logical connection.
You've got it. Coherence is about the flow and structure of the ideas, not just repeating the same action.
Give me the 5 examples.
All right, a formal example. The scientific paper demonstrated a high degree of coherence because every piece of data logically supported the central research thesis.
High-quality organization.
A casual example. His story about his crazy weekend was surprisingly coherent, even after 3 cups of coffee. He managed to link all the events together logically.
A rare skill.
A funny, weird example. My dog's dream barks usually lack coherence. They seem to jump from chasing squirrels to barking at the mailman with no logical transition at all.
I can relate to that.
A historical example. A successful political movement needs coherence between its stated goals and its actual actions if it wants to maintain public trust.
The actions have to match the words.
And a philosophical example. A truly coherent worldview is one that manages to integrate science, ethics, and personal experience into a single, unified framework without internal contradictions.
That structural unity is powerful. Okay, let's role play that curriculum planning failure again to show how a lack of coherence really impacts the student.
Sounds good. I'll be the lead curriculum designer, and I'm defending my B2 plan. You be the skeptical teacher who has to actually use it.
As teacher, okay, I'm looking at the D2 plan. Why does our final assessment require students to write a detailed analysis of complex poetry when the entire teaching method for the semester relies solely on them silently reading simplified news articles?
As designer, that's a very good point. Our material selection and our final assessment are completely out of alignment. They lack coherence.
As teacher, so the students are being set up to fail.
As designer, exactly. We need to introduce authentic, complex texts into the curriculum and maybe a critical thinking component if we truly expect them to succeed on that high-stakes poetry analysis task. The parts aren't working together.
As teacher, so the framework's demand for coherence ensures that every part of the system is working toward the same goal. It prevents wasted effort and frustration.
That is precisely the definition of high coherence in educational design. Now for the collocations and nuances. We often talk about internal coherence, stylistic coherence, a lack of coherence, and textual coherence. The main nuance to remember is that coherence relates heavily to the flow, unity, and systematic structure of ideas, especially in a text or a system.
Got it. Okay, next principle, transparency. If coherence is the internal unity of the system, is transparency just about being honest on the outside, or is it more technical than that for the CEFR?
It's definitely more technical than just honesty. In this context, transparency means that all the information is explicitly formulated, it's easy to understand, and it's readily available to all the users. That means teachers, learners, and institutions.
So no hidden rules.
No hidden criteria. No subjective standards that govern the expectations for your performance.
Okay, so if I'm preparing for a C1 writing exam, transparency means I need to know precisely and clearly what separates a C1 essay from a B2 essay.
You need to be able to see the rubric, the descriptors, the scoring criteria, and they must all be written in plain, explicit language. No guesswork.
I like that. Let's do the examples.
A formal example. The assessment criteria must meet the standard of transparency so that external auditors can easily verify the consistency and fairness of the grading process.
Complete openness in the system.
A casual example.
Hmm.
The instructions for building that new bookshelf finally had some transparency. They included a step-by-step video, not just a confusing manual filled with jargon.
A video is the ultimate transparency.
A funny, weird example. I tried to hide my late-night snacking, but my sticky chocolate fingerprints on the fridge door destroyed all transparency.
The evidence was clear.
A historical example. The push for freedom of information laws was fundamentally a movement demanding greater transparency in government so citizens could understand how decisions affecting them were being made.
A very important concept.
And a philosophical example.
Yeah.
True self-awareness requires radical transparency with oneself, being completely open about your own motivations, even the ones you don't like.
Oof, that's a tough one. I really appreciate that the CEFR demands we know exactly what's expected of us. Let's role-play a student's reaction to a transparent descriptor to see it in action.
Okay. You be a student looking at a B2 self-assessment guide, and I'll be the teacher who designed it.
As student, this is fantastic. Under the spoken interaction section, it says, quote, I can maintain interaction and express my ideas clearly, even if I have to pause occasionally to search for grammar and vocabulary.
As teacher, that clarity right there, that's transparency.
Right.
We are explicitly telling you that pausing is okay at this level. You don't have to be perfect, but your search for words shouldn't significantly stop the flow of the conversation.
As student, it's no longer a guessing game. I know exactly what to aim for. Knowing that helps me focus my practice. Thank you for the transparency.
Got it. It removes complexity, and it ensures clarity for everyone.
So,
For the collocations and nuances, we often hear financial transparency, clear and transparent, a high degree of transparency, and a lack of transparency. The main nuance here is that it guarantees accessibility and clarity, preventing hidden complexities from confusing the learner.
okay, so we have the map, which is the CEFR. We have the guardrails, which are coherence and transparency. Now, what is the actual substance of language learning? You mentioned the 3 pillars of communicative language competence.
Yes. This is the engine of the whole system. Communicative language competence is divided into 3 fundamental pillars: linguistic, sociolinguistic, and pragmatic.
And I need all 3.
To be fully fluent, to reach that C2 level, you need mastery of all 3. If you only ever focus on grammar, you're only building 1/3 of your house.
Okay, so let's start with the first pillar, linguistic competences. This sounds like the one I know best.
It's the one most traditional classes focus on. Linguistic competence covers the language as a formal system. It's your knowledge and skills related to the formal resources you use to assemble well-formed, meaningful messages.
So grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, all that stuff is in here.
Precisely. It includes syntactical knowledge, which is the grammar rules.
Yeah.
It includes phonological competence, which is the sound systems. And crucially, it includes lexical competence.
Lexical competence. So vocabulary, I notice when I try to write formally, I sometimes use a word that I know the definition of, but it just sounds wrong to a native speaker in that sentence. Is that a lexical competence problem?
That is very likely a lexical competence problem.
Yeah.
Because lexical competence includes not just single words, but fixed expressions, phrasal idioms, and collocations, which are words that naturally go together.
Like make a mistake, not do a mistake.
Exactly. In English, we pay attention, we don't give attention, even though give and pay might be synonyms in other contexts. Knowing that is lexical competence.
Okay, let's drill into that. Is lexical competence just about the quantity of words I know, or is it more about how those words connect structurally?
It is absolutely about the structure and connection. Lexical competence is your knowledge of and your ability to use the vocabulary of a language. This includes not only single word forms, but how they combine naturally into fixed chunks, idioms, and collocations.
So it's the difference between knowing the definition of the word house and knowing the common collocation house rules.
Perfect example. So if you know 10,000 words, but you consistently say do a mistake instead of make a mistake, it means your lexical competence is structurally weak in that specific area of collocation.
I have the raw materials, but I don't know the local construction rules.
That's a great way to put it. You've got the bricks, but you don't know the right way to lay them.
Okay, give me the 5 examples for this one.
All right, a formal example. Developing robust lexical competence requires targeted practice with corpus data to identify and internalize high-frequency academic collocations.
Very academic.
Casual example. My lexical competence always fails me when I try to order at a fancy restaurant. I just end up pointing at the menu because I can't pronounce any of the French-sounding words.
I have absolutely been there.
A funny, weird example. He tried to show off his impressive lexical competence by using the word ephemeral to describe a sandwich, which just confused everyone.
An ephemeral sandwich. Okay.
A historical example. Early dictionaries were absolutely essential tools for building a standardized national lexical competence as they recorded and legitimized common word usage.
They wrote down the rules.
In a philosophical example. The limits of our lexical competence may, in fact, define the limits of our thought. If you don't have a word for a concept, it's much harder to think about it clearly.
That's a powerful idea. Okay, let's put this into practice. I'll try to describe a storm, and you can tell me what I need to work on.
Sounds good. Describe the storm.
As learner,
Okay.
the wind was very strong and the rain was very big. It made a lot of noise outside.
Okay, that's functional. That's A2 level. It communicates the basic idea. But to improve your lexical competence and move up to B1,
I need more descriptive words.
you need descriptive collocations. Strong wind is good, but what about howling wind? Instead of big rain, you could say torrential rain. Instead of made a lot of noise, how about the thunder roared?
Ah, I see. It's not just about knowing the word torrential, it's about knowing that torrential pairs naturally with rain. It's a chunk.
That is the key takeaway. You need to learn these chunks of language, not just individual words.
Got it.
For collocations and nuances, you should focus on phrases like lexical competence development, core lexical competence, range of lexical competence, and improving lexical competence. And the nuance is always that competence is not defined by quantity alone, but by knowing how words combine and function as natural units in speech.
Okay, now for the sound system part of linguistic competence, you mentioned a term in phonological competence that sounds like something should explode. Plosion. Why is a highly technical phonetic feature like this important for an intermediate learner like me?
It's important because clear articulation directly affects comprehension. Plosion, or a plosive consonant, is a very precise feature of sound production. It's where the airflow is completely blocked in your mouth or your throat, and then it's released suddenly.
Like a little explosion of air.
Exactly. It's that burst of air you get with sounds like PT and K.
Okay, but why do I care about a burst of air? Isn't that just for, like, speech therapists?
Well, think about this. If your native language doesn't have strong plosion, or if you release the sound very weakly, your tip sound in English might sound like a D sound to a native English speaker.
Ah, so it affects clarity.
It directly impacts clarity. The strength of that release, the plosion, is crucial for distinguishing between minimal pairs like tie and die or pat and bat.
Okay, now I see why it's important. Let's hear the examples.
A formal example. The articulatory analysis of the student's speech revealed inconsistent oral plosion on the initial P sounds, suggesting incomplete acquisition of the target phonology.
Very clinical.
A casual example. I noticed the clear plosion in the way the actor pronounced the word top at the end of his line. Made it sound so crisp.
I can almost feel that burst of air when I say top, T-O-P.
Yeah. A funny, weird example. My attempt to open a tightly sealed jar of pickles resulted in a sound similar to a minor phonetic plosion when the lid finally gave way.
A very satisfying sound.
A historical example. Phonetic researchers can study the precise timing of the plosion release in old audio recordings to track how pronunciation has changed over decades.
It's fascinating.
And a philosophical example. Does the sudden plosion of a spoken word reflect the sudden emergence of a thought from the subconscious into the conscious mind?
I like that. That's a very cool way to think about it. Let's try to use it in a conversation about pronunciation practice.
Okay, you be the learner, and you're struggling with the pool sound in the word pepper.
As the learner, I keep saying bibber. My lips are in the right place, but it sounds soft. I can't get the sound right.
As teacher, okay, you need to focus on the plosion. Focus on stopping the air completely with your lips closed. Build up the pressure behind them, and then release it sharply. Like a little pop, say P-O-P. Feel that sharp, small explosion.
As learner, exaggerating T-P-P-P-P-O-P. Ah, that burst of sound, that plosion, that's what makes the difference. Pepper, it feels much clearer now.
That control over the sudden release of air is exactly what phonetic competence requires.
Okay.
For collocations and nuances, you'll mostly see this in technical contexts: oral plosion, phonetic plosion, delayed plosion, and complete plosion. The nuance is simply that this is a highly technical articulatory term that refers specifically to that burst of sound release.
Got it. Okay, so we've built the formal structure of our language house with linguistic competence. Now, how do we use it without offending anyone? That sounds like where sociolinguistic competence comes in.
That's the social filter,
Yeah.
exactly. This pillar is all about the knowledge and skills you need to deal with the social dimension of language use.
What does that include?
It includes understanding social relations like status and closeness. It includes politeness conventions, and crucially for learners, it includes managing register.
Register, that's the formality spectrum, right?
Yes, all the way from frozen, which is like a legal document or a religious text,
Untouchable.
to formal, like a business presentation, then neutral, like a news report, informal, which is a chat with a colleague, then familiar with close friends, and finally intimate with partners or family.
Okay. What if I'm a B1 learner and I learn a really cool piece of slang from a movie, and I decide to use it with my university professor to sound advanced? I'm trying to show off my vocabulary.
That is the textbook definition of the register trap.
The register trap, I like that.
The source material gives a huge caution here. Inappropriate use of formal or familiar registers can lead to misinterpretation and, yes, sometimes even ridicule.
So a native speaker expects a B1 foreign speaker to stick to a clear, functional, neutral register. Trying to sound too local too fast is actually a pragmatic error.
Exactly. You haven't mastered the cultural timing and context yet. Sociolinguistic competence also covers your awareness of dialect and accent differences. So, recognizing how different groups use different words or pronunciation, like hearing someone say "we" for small in Scottish English.
Okay, speaking of local language, let's clarify the difference between idiomatic expressions and colloquialisms. They seem very similar, almost interchangeable, but I suspect they are not.
They are very closely related, but there is a distinct difference. Idiomatic expressions, or idioms, are fixed phrases where the meaning cannot be guessed from the individual words.
Kicked the bucket.
Kick to the bucket is the classic example. It has nothing to do with kicking or buckets.
Huh?
Colloquialisms, on the other hand, are informal words or phrases that are used in ordinary everyday conversation, and they are often restricted geographically or socially.
Like using y'all in the southern United States.
Exactly. So an idiom is non-literal and fixed. A colloquialism is informal and often regional. That's the best way to distinguish them.
Okay, examples, please.
A formal example. Capturing the nuanced meaning of regional idiomatic expressions posed the greatest challenge for the new machine translation software.
I can imagine.
A casual example. When my friend from the UK said he was chuffed to bits, I recognized that colloquialism as a common British way of saying he was very pleased.
I love that one. Chuffed to bits.
It's a great one. A funny, weird example. I tried to invent a new idiomatic expression for when you forget what you were looking for: to chase the invisible squirrel. It has not caught on yet.
I might use that. I chase the invisible squirrel at least 5 times a day.
A historical example.
Yeah.
Many words that are now considered standard literary English, like the word shambles, actually started out centuries ago as simple colloquialisms for messy workplaces.
No way.
And a philosophical example. To truly master a language means you have to transcend its literal structure and internalize the idiomatic expressions that reveal a culture's deep conceptual metaphors about life.
Oh, okay. Let's role play the confusion an idiom can cause. This will confirm why we have to memorize them as whole chunks.
Perfect. I'll tell you, I'm feeling a bit ill, and I'll use an idiom. You react to the literal meaning of my words.
You got it. Hit me with it.
As speaker A. Ugh, I'm feeling a bit under the weather today. I think I need to call in sick.
As learner B. Wait, are you outside in the rain right now? Did you forget your coat? Why are you literally standing under the bad weather?
As speaker A. Ah, you see, you took that literally. Under the weather is an idiomatic expression that just means I'm feeling sick or unwell. That's why you have to learn them as single, non-decomposable units.
And it confirms why we need that specific sociolinguistic competence to manage these cultural language puzzles.
Absolutely. For collocations and nuances, you should focus on standard idiomatic expressions, colorful colloquialisms, mastering idiomatic expressions, and cultural colloquialisms. The key nuance is that idioms are fixed and non-literal, whereas colloquialisms reflect informal speech that is often geographically sensitive.
Okay, so we've built the structure and we know the social rules. The final pillar is pragmatic competence. How is this different from sociolinguistic competence? They sound very similar.
They do sound similar, but they're different. If sociolinguistic competence is about knowing who you're talking to and what level of formality to use,
Okay.
then pragmatic competence is about knowing how to construct a conversation to achieve your functional goal. It's about the functional use and organizational principles of language. It's
Well,
using language to do things,
oh, what kind of things?
like arguing successfully,
Here.
or making a convincing request, or telling a story in a way that makes sense.
So it's about the flow and the objective of the conversation itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
It involves three sub-areas. There's discourse competence, which is about organization, cohesion, and coherence. There's functional competence, which is about performing speech acts like suggesting or complaining. And there's design competence.
Design competence.
That's about sequencing the language according to established patterns, what we call interactional schemata, like knowing the expected back and forth steps for a formal job interview.
Ah, so this is where we learn how to manage the interaction itself, how to start a conversation, how to change the topic politely, and how to end it without being awkward.
Exactly. And critically, it also involves understanding different types of texts and discourse. It's even about detecting subtleties, like irony and parody. If you lack pragmatic competence, you might listen to a satirical news report and think it's real news.
That's a huge problem. Okay, so if I hear the word pragmatic, my first thought is practical or realistic. Does it carry the same meaning here, or is it exclusively about these communication rules?
It definitely ties into practical, but it's specifically about the practical rules of language use. Pragmatic competence is about the functional use and organizational principles of language, ensuring that your message is not just grammatically correct, but also appropriate and effective in a specific social context.
Okay, so if I'm at a restaurant, my linguistic competence gives me the words, I want the chicken.
Right.
But my pragmatic competence is what tells me to say, could I please have the chicken in that specific transactional setting?
Perfect example. It's the filter for effectiveness and politeness in a given context.
Let's do the 5 examples for this one.
All right. A formal example.
Uh-huh.
Assessing a learner's pragmatic competence is very challenging. It often requires observing their performance in complex role-played negotiation tasks.
You have to see it in action.
Casual example. He's a really funny guy, but his joke at the wedding failed because it wasn't pragmatic for the situation. The timing and the audience were all wrong.
Reading the room is a pragmatic skill.
It absolutely is. A funny, weird example.
Yeah, sure.
My attempts to give instructions to my new robot vacuum cleaner failed due to a pragmatic mismatch. It just didn't understand conversational commands, only very specific button presses.
You can't negotiate with a robot.
A historical example. The shift in business letter writing from very formal, flowery openings to direct conversational language reflects the evolution of pragmatic standards in professional discourse.
Getting to the point is now seen as more effective.
Exactly. And a philosophical example. Understanding the intention behind a statement, what the speaker truly means beyond their literal words, is the ultimate test of our pragmatic intelligence.
That's deep. Okay, let's look at a common mistake that is a pure pragmatic failure. I'll be a student who failed to manage the flow of a business meeting.
Okay, and I'll be the annoyed colleague.
As colleague. So we finally agreed on the budget, but you spent 20 minutes of that meeting talking about the color of the office carpet. We almost ran out of time.
As speaker A, the learner.
I know.
Oh, I know. My pragmatic failure was terrible. I had the linguistic competence to describe the carpet in great detail, but I lacked the pragmatic competence to realize that in the occupational domain, carpet color is completely irrelevant when we're discussing a budget deadline.
So you failed to manage the discourse efficiently.
Painfully relatable. We've all been in meetings like that. For collocations and nuances, you should focus on pragmatic rules, pragmatic skills, pragmatic competences, and pragmatic failure. The key nuance is that pragmatics governs the organization and use of your linguistic resources to achieve a functional purpose in a specific social interaction.